This e-presentation will introduce to you the work of Ronald Smith and Frank Small. Over the past 4 decades, Smith and Small have conducted research in youth sport settings, particularly baseball and basketball. One of their lasting contributions to the field of sport psychology has been through the development of the Coaching Behaviour Assessment System, also known as the CBAS. Their research into coach behaviour is cited in numerous textbooks, articles, and has informed many observational research studies to date. Throughout the rest of this presentation, we will explore the development of the CBAS observation system and how it has been used to answer important questions in youth sport. In 1977, Smith, Small, and Hunt developed the CBAS to assess the overt behaviour of coaches operating in youth sport. The premise for developing the CBAS was based on the fact that the majority of research into leadership relied on self-reported measurement to assess both leader behaviour and associated outcomes. Even today, research that examines coach behaviour from a variety of theoretical perspectives relies almost exclusively on athletes' reports of their coach. Smith and Small were concerned about this trend and cite eminent leadership researcher John Campbell, who, in 1977, made the comment that "We are in very grave danger of transforming the study of leadership to a study of self-report questionnaire behaviour. If, indeed, the transformation has not already occurred, I submit that when both the independent and dependent variables are based on self-reports by the same person, we have learned absolutely nothing about leadership." As a result, Smith and Small sought to develop a new observational measure of coach behaviour. In the mid-1970s, Smith, Small, and their colleagues began consulting on numerous video and audio recordings, as well as reports of coaches' behaviours provided by trained observers in both training and matches. The included categories and measurement approach are reflective of a more behaviourist approach that was popular around that time. Following this initial development, the CBAS was organised into 12 categories. These were grouped into 2 major classes: reactive behaviours and spontaneous behaviours. Reactive behaviours are the responses to athlete and team behaviours and include different types of reinforcement or technical instruction. Spontaneous behaviours are initiated by the coach and are not in response to a preceding event. They might include organisation or general encouragement. The use of the CBAS in a variety of sport suggests that the behavioural categories sufficiently encompass the majority of overt coach behaviours. Following the development of the CBAS, a number of field studies were conducted. These include a large number of coaches from youth baseball and basketball settings. Smith and Small found that typically coaches engaged in over 200 overt behaviours per game. By making multiple observations, a coaching profile was developed based on thousands of observable behaviours taken over the course of a season. The figures from this early work are impressive. The researchers assessed over 80 coaches and rated over 80,000 behaviours, as well as collecting reports from their young athletes. Based on a factor analysis, the observed behaviours could be grouped according to whether they were supportive, instructional, or punitive. An interesting finding was that only a very small percentage of the observed behaviours were punitive in nature. This is encouraging given the fact that coaches were observed on multiple occasions, and therefore the likelihood of a Hawthorne effect, where coaches display desirable behaviours for the camera, is reduced. In addition, another important finding relates to the relationship between supportive and punitive behaviours. These were found to be independent rather than opposites of the same continuum, i.e., just because a coach isn't supportive doesn't mean they are being punitive, or vice versa. The relationship between observed coach behaviour and athletes' responses are striking and provide evidence for the important role the coach plays in the athlete's experiences of sport. When the coach was observed to provide high levels of reinforcement for desirable performance and effort, while offering encouragement and technical instruction following mistakes, children liked their coach and teammates more, and had more fun. Additionally, when a coach was punitive towards athletes, the athletes reported more negative attitudes towards the coach than when the coach was more supportive. Interestingly, in this youth sport example, the win-loss record didn't appear to be important to the athletes, although the athletes did report that they thought this was more important to their parents. One pertinent finding from Smith and Small's work is the relationship between the reports from coaches and athletes about coach behaviour and the coach behaviour that Smith and Small observed and recorded. This self-assessment while being observed provides an indication of self-awareness, something that is important if researchers are to help coaches develop a more adaptive coaching environment. Findings from the CBAS and coaches' own self-reports of their behaviour were generally low and non-significant. The only significant correlation observed was between self-reported and observed punitive behaviours, indicating that the coaches might be more aware of when they punished or were critical towards their athletes. In terms of the athletes, their self-reports of the coaches' behaviours correlated much more highly, indicating that they are more aware of how the coach is behaving. Overall, these findings point to the fact that those coaches were, to use the term offered by Smith and Small, blissfully unaware of their behaviour. Even now, this is something faced when working with coaches who claim to do certain behaviours. When you watch them, you often find this isn't the case. Considering ways in which to raise their levels of self-awareness and reflection should help when attempting to support coaches in using more adaptive coaching behaviours. We hope that this e-presentation has provided a nice insight into the early work of Smith, Small and their colleagues, and introduced you to research that has utilised the CBAS observation system. There are many papers and book chapters exploring this important line of research in youth sport. For more information on the CBAS, you can consult the 2007 textbook, The Social Psychology of Sport. Thanks for listening.